Call it a COVID conundrum. In states with the strictest measures in the country, like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and much of New England, cases are on the rise. While in the South, states like Arkansas and Texas that have reopened businesses and ripped away mask mandates are seeing their numbers drop.
Oh yes, it's all such a big mystery once again. States with strict lockdowns and mask mandates are seeing a rise in cases, while those without those things are seeing a drop in cases. The state of Michigan, for example, is currently the biggest hotspot for new cases in the U.S., and it has some of the strictest COVID lockdown measures in the country right now. On the other hand, Texas dropped its restrictions almost a month ago, and the Lone Star State has seen a continued substantial decline in cases. The experts are supposedly baffled by this and are scrambling to find an answer as to why their predictions of doom for anti-lockdown states have never materialized. Here's the theory they might consider. Maybe lockdowns and mask mandates aren't as effective as they insist and have been insisting for a year they are. Well, to give us perspective on this is the New York correspondent for thefederalist.com, David Marcus, and he's also the author of a new book out, Charade, The True Story of the Coronavirus Crisis. There we go. David, much anticipated. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, it's gotten to the point now where it's almost like an SNL sketch, except it's deadly serious and resulting in a tremendous amount of pain, misery, unemployment, lost businesses, and destruction in general, and all the psychological baggage and damage that's been done here with lockdowns. They're surprised. I mean, when you ask Fauci, you ask all these experts, how is it possible that a month ago it was Neanderthal thinking, according to Biden, to get rid of some of these mandates? And the places that get rid of them are doing better. The places that keep them are doing not just worse in terms of not going down, they're going way up with cases. What's happening here?
I mean, I don't know about you, Buck, but I feel like we've been having this conversation for our entire lives now. I mean, this is just wait 2 weeks all over again. I mean, if you recall from, I believe it was April of last year, when Governors Kemp and DeSantis were going to open up Florida and Georgia, and you know, we were told that this was human sacrifice. We were told by the Atlantic magazine. It's a year later, and it's exactly the same thing. I mean, it's absolute madness. And I think the longer it goes on, and the farther we get away from the beginning of this, the more absurd we can see that it is. I mean, remember, don't touch your face. Remember when that was our big response to a public health crisis for a solid 2 weeks?
If we washed our hands enough, we were going to get this things under control. That was, yes, I remember that.
Yes, or use your elbow when you open the door. I mean, it's insane, Buck. And of course, then of course, Fauci looks at these numbers and says, "Oh, well, it's confusing." I mean, it's time for the American people to be done with this. I know we've said that for a long time, but it really is.
I see. For me, the last straw with all this was when, after for months I'd been saying they're going to say double mask. I guarantee you they're going to go with double mask. And then they finally did right around January. And I said, okay, anyone who doesn't see it now is incapable of understanding what's really going on here. I mean, I know you've written about this in your book, Charade. And what do you think now? What is the turning point? I mean, what has to happen for people to understand that if we continue to allow the people who have been making these decisions to do so, we are going to be dealing with this for the rest of this year, and even Fauci has said probably deep into next year? When do people realize enough is enough?
I think there's three groups of people, right? I think that there are the people like you and I who have been fed up with this basically since it started, right? And then I think there are people of goodwill in the middle who have legitimate fears and concerns, but are open to the reasonable arguments that we're making. There's also a significant portion of the population that, for whom this has become a religion, that they are never going to give up. I mean, if you've invested a year of your life barely leaving your house and double masking and believing everything that these people said and inconveniencing yourself and probably depressing yourself in enormous ways, I think you're so invested that they're never going to give it up. I think you and I should expect to see a significant number of people wearing masks in the street for the rest of our lives.
I think there are going to be people who wear masks for many years to come, even when COVID becomes, and let's assume there aren't the variants, and we keep hearing about all the you can name the variants against whatever, or name the variants for whatever country you want. That's not racist. But China virus, of course, is evil and racist. I mean, the whole thing, they move the goalposts so much, it's dizzying with every aspect of this. But on where this goes, I mean, I think you're right. There are people that are open-minded about it, and I hope we can bring enough of them over to our side. But then there are also those folks, you mentioned the religious believers in the kind of mask faith or whatever you want to call it. And there's actual evidence and there's actual articles, I should say, analysis being written about re-entry fear. And I think this is another part of this people don't understand. There are some folks for whom never having to socialize, never having to really leave their homes except to get food, living online, having food delivered and being in their sweatpants all the time, it's a lifestyle that they don't want to give up, and or they're just concerned about having to re-enter society. I mean, the Wall Street Journal wrote about this about a week ago.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there are also big tech companies that stand to gain absolute windfalls from people who take that point of view. I mean, all of these tech companies that are not only providing people with their needs who refuse to leave their homes, but anticipating those needs. I mean, this kind of atomized society is not a lose-lose situation. There are winners. Big tech is the big winner. And guess what? In a large way, they're also the people who are controlling the information. So it's a pretty tightly tied knot, isn't it?